Hi guys, this is Anna, welcome to my channel. I have been inspired to do this video by the lovely Jennifer from Insert the Literally Pun here. I've been procrastinating making new videos, not just because I have quite a bit of work at the end of the year, no, mostly because I still owe you a couple of videos, and one of those videos was the second half of the books I've read in the summer. And there is a book, well, there are two books in that list which really I don't think highly of. I really dislike this book, so I was thinking of maybe not talking about them whatsoever. After all, very few people, at least I thought, would want to go to a channel and watch other people take some books apart. There's a lot of hatred in the world as it is, and the booktube community, I thought people just want to have a nice positive opinion, but I really loved watching Jennifer's video, and I think she's right. We all come from different parts of the world, we all have different opinion, and whatever you read has to resonate with you. You might like it, you might dislike it, it does not in any way reflect on your intelligence. The books I will talk about today, a lot of people loved. In fact, one of those books has won a literary prize this year, and I really dislike it. And that could be just a personal thing, but I kind of feel like I have a liberty now to talk about it. Yes, I'm nowhere near as good as Jennifer is. I don't have her sense of humor, I don't really have her pizzazz for talking about the books in such a poignant way. She's just so up to the point with her descriptions. But nonetheless, there are a couple of books which really grated on me this year, and I can't understand why some people think that those books are gospel and they should treat them as such. A book is a book, and I completely agree with Umberto Eco when he says that as a writer you put quite a lot of your thoughts into it, but at the end of the day, once the book is published, it's no longer about your thoughts about it, it's about what the reader thinks, what the reader takes from the book, how the book goes through the reader, so it's been interpreted. There are a couple of books this year which I absolutely detested, and there are some which are just disappointing. They're disappointing to me, but you might have loved them. So if I give you forewarning, if you're one of those sensitive people who don't like other people bashing the books, just don't watch the rest of the video. I don't think I will swear, I don't think I'll be particularly rude, but I'll be quite frank and honest about why I dislike some of the books mentioned. There will be a couple, none of them will be YA, none of them will be romantic novels. I have read quite a few of them this year, just as an entertainment. But the books I'd like to talk about are the books which made me wonder why other people are so besotted with them. They're not necessarily the worst book. Well, there is one book which I think is literally the worst one I've read in several years, but the rest of them, they're not inherently bad. They're just disappointing to me. So, I'm going to talk about 5 books mainly, and there is one mention before we go into the list. I can't really say it's one of the worst or most disappointing books I've read. I'm disappointed in the publisher rather than the author. And the book, which kind of get a bit of a dishonorable mention, is The Murder, Suicide or Accident. It's a non-fiction book I got via the NetGalley earlier this year. I was quite excited to read it. However, it turned out to be a word-for-word reprint from the 1970s book. There was no editorial work done whatsoever, and quite frankly it begs the question, why bother to republish it? The forensics has moved on. It's sloppy on behalf of the publisher, and I feel really bad for the book. If I read it in the 1970s, I would have loved it, but in 2017, no. Right, keeping up with the theme of non-fiction, since we started with it, there are 2 books. I'll talk about the 2 books together, because one is the prequel to the other one. One is Homo sapiens, The Brief History of Humankind, and the other one is Homo Deus, by the Israeli historian. He's not a scientist, let me tell you, he is not a scientist. It's his take, where he combines the history with the science to bring the history of humankind to the modern audience. And I have to say, I'm very disappointed with those books. I don't understand the mass hysteria surrounding them. They're not bad, they're not telling you lies, but they're telling you school facts. There's nothing in those books, nothing to warrant the amount of attention they gather from adult readers. If the book was aimed at 13 to 16-year-olds, brilliant. It's a teenage literature. And if the fact that adults read it and they go crazy over those books and they think that it has profoundly moved them or it opened their eyes on the current issues in the world, well, that terrifies me. I'm not gonna lie, that really does terrify me, because if you live in a cave and you're completely oblivious to what's going on around you, then yeah, maybe you will be surprised by reading this book. You will find stuff in there which you've never even thought about it. But that's a very scary picture of the world. I would expect an adult to have some sort of understanding about where we come from and what is currently going on. You don't need to be just like coming from a humanities background, have no understanding whatsoever of the people and the culture and the history. Those books, honestly, they're so simplistic in the amount of factual information they try to convey, that I found it like reading, it's like, you know, like when you find the chewing gum which has been chewed for years before that, you find it and you go like, oh yeah, maybe when I was a child I really liked the flavor, and you take it on as an adult and then suddenly it's just redundant. That book is redundant, both of those. And whether Homo sapiens at least has some sort of idea behind it, like I can see why people liked it. The sequel to that, the Homo Deus, is worse. It's like, oh, I have written a book which was really popular and I got that public attention, that brought money. Why don't I just milk the same cow and prolong the money rolling theme? What can I add to the story I've already told? Let's just come up with the most absurdic, obvious ideas and put them into the book. And it's a big book, both of them are quite chunky. Thank God I have read them electronically on my Kindle, and I don't have them because I would have to check them out. I'm not going to keep that literature in my house. See, now I'm getting angry. I really dislike non-fiction books which are just written to be written. When you pick up a non-fiction book, you're supposed to get something out of it. You're supposed to learn from it. Some books you read for entertainment. Some books you read because you want to actually learn something new. And I didn't find the book entertaining, and I did not find the book useful in terms of bringing me up to speed on some of the issues. There was, honestly, Homo sapiens, like all the jokes in there, I knew those jokes when I was 16, 17. And my childhood was spent in post-Soviet Union era in Russia, where stuff on science was not that readily available. If I knew it then I'm sorry, like what is there not to know? And the fact that people like Barack Obama then say that people should read this book, he chose that book in his final years as President of the United States for his summer holiday read. That's just such a big honor for a book which is not deserving of it. So yeah, those two books, I would recommend them for teenagers. But if you're an adult, honestly, read something better. There are so many lovely, properly well written and researched non-fiction books on the history of the world, on science history, which are just a different league. Don't waste your time. Time is precious. It's not even the money, it's the time. Right, that's as far as non-fiction goes. Let's go into fiction. Books I was disappointed. I'm gonna start with the one I mentioned recently on my channel, that's the Essex Serpent. It's not bad. Once again, it's not that I hate the book. I don't hate the book. But it's boring. And I don't understand the mass hysteria with the language. People say the language is poetic. In what way is it poetic? In what way is it regional? She's supposed to go to Essex, for crying out loud. I didn't see any Essex in her speech. The way the sentences were constructed were just the same as when she was in London. It's a historical fiction, so it's supposed to take place in the late 19th century. Fair enough. Was the language, in my mind, and I'm not obviously the first, English is not my first language. I can say it's my first language. I mean, I have been living in this country now for half of my life, and I work in English, I studied in English. And I live in East Anglia, so I'm quite sensitive to the accents, and I love Victorian literature. And if you write a piece of historical fiction, I would expect the language to change. And I found the language modern. I found the issues in the book just really, really plain. Once again, is it warranted nearly 300 pages? No. The whole story could have just been put into 50 as a short story, like a little novella, and that would have been enough. Is it sensational? There is this idea that there is a child with Asperger's syndrome. Yeah, that's the most exciting thing about the book. Is it explored properly? No, it's like a side character somewhere. And I was really disappointed because I started reading the book and I was like, okay, there is this relationship between the mother and the child. If that's going to be the main aim, the main tangent of the book, brilliant. But no, it's about the woman, the two men who are in love with her. One of the men she falls for is just so boring. It's like reading a teenage drama, but with no excitement. Like Clueless is much more excited, way more excited than the Essex Serpent. Then there is a little bit of the angle with her being possibly bisexual and having an affair with a woman. Yeah, that topic is not new, I'm sorry, and that could have been done better once again. So it's a book about nothing. It's a book about the woman who is bored with her life. She's a young widow, she has the means, she tries to entertain herself. She goes around entertaining herself, and in the process, she completely loses sight of her child. What is he doing with his Asperger's? Is she trying to help him? No, he's just like in the background. She wrecks her family in the process, family she supposedly likes. But oh yeah, she can't control her feelings. What a lot of bollocks. I'm sorry, that is just a novel written for no reason whatsoever. Did I learn anything from that story? No. Did I feel compassionate towards any of the characters? No. Was I interested in any of the characters? No. It's a waste of time. To me, it's a waste of time. Along the similar line, I have read, and it was a stupid decision, I should not have picked it up, The Tulip Fever. I picked it up because Alicia Vikander, in the summer, had a new movie coming out, made using this book. And I like Alicia Vikander, and I thought like, okay, she's not that stupid, she's not going to be in a horrendous movie, so maybe she's chosen to be attached to this project. Actually, the book is not that bad. And I'm not going to watch the movie until I read the book, so I picked up the book. Oh my god, what a slog. That book, honestly, don't waste your time. The language is boring. The story is predictable. It's even beyond predictable. It's just sucked out of the finger with absolutely no pretext whatsoever. Her falling in love with a young artist because she's married to this elderly guy who is rich, blah blah blah, arranged marriage, 17th century, that's a norm, I'm sorry. But she falls in love with this artist. Does she fall in love or just gets horny? Those are two completely different things. If you find someone sexually attractive and you just want to bang them, fine, go and do it, but don't call it love. The fact that she knows nothing about this artist, but she thinks that he's the love of her life. Honestly, even when I was 12, I would not be fooled with that concept. It was so boring. There's one decent scene in the entire book, which I'm not gonna tell you about because if I do, it kind of spoils the book. It's the only decent thing about the book, the only thing worth reading. Everything else, boring. Her relationship with the husband, boring. Her relationship with her maid, boring. Her so-called love with the artist, bloody teenage drama. I'm sorry, I teach 13-year-olds at school. Even they would not fall for that crap. The way it was written, the language in the book, it's not literary fiction, guys. It's very cheaply done historical fiction. Maybe if I were to write a book and sit down and do little research, I will produce something like it. But it's not worth the time. It's not going to be atmospheric. It's not going to give you Amsterdam of the time period. It's not going to teach you anything new about the historical content of the time. You just have this woman who is horny and sex obsessed, who wants to have a relationship, some sort of big love relationship with this artist, and they speculate on the tulip. The whole Tulip Fever is just the backdrop. I don't know. What a monumental waste of my life to read this book. Right, another book which is also historical fiction I read early in the year, and it was another one I got by NetGalley. was the Orphans Tale, and that's to do with the Jewish circus scene during World War II, surviving in Germany and in occupied France. I like historical fiction. I like pretty much anything set within the period of between World War I and World War II. So I was quite excited to pick it up, and the synopsis on the book was really good. In the end, I really disliked the book because, again, the really good idea the author might have had at one point about this book was really poorly realized. And it does not warrant 350 pages of suffering for a reader to go through it. So the protagonist of the book, she got pregnant while she was occupied. She's from Belgium. She like proper blonde with blue eyes, so she had an affair with a German officer. She gets pregnant, her parents kick her out, she has nowhere to go, she's teenage, she basically decides that she's gonna take the Germans on the author and she's gonna give them the child. And she gives birth and basically abandons her child with them, and then the time passes by and she really craves the child, she misses, she's working in the train station, and one night there's a train going all the way to Auschwitz or any other concentration camp. It's not actually explained which one it is. And one of the wagons in the train is fully occupied by the pregnant women and the children they just given birth to. So she rescues one of the children, the little boy, from the death, and she escapes and she finds refuge with the circus. And the circus has a history and a dark secret. They are Jewish and they're trying to hide the heiress who is Jewish. And basically the lives of this young Belgian girl and the Jewish aerial author, they kind of author-artist, they intervene and lead to the raising of their child. But all of the characters in this book are carbon-based copy. They're paper-based, they're boring. It's impossible to enjoy reading about them because not only they're poorly realized, they never grow as characters. So you read the book from page 1 to page 300 and you're like, is she gonna grow up? Is something gonna change? No, the book is so boring. And it's really sad because the idea was there. The first chapter got me excited, so I wanted to pick up the book. But then the rest of it, in terms of literary work, it's not really good storytelling, I'm afraid. It's not the worst book I've read, but it is pretty bland. And there are other books you can pick up and read because time is precious. Why waste it on a bland book, which you'll probably forget within the next couple of months? Right, that leads me to the last two books, the biggest disappointment of the year for me. And those are the two books I actually have in paper version. I'm gonna start with the second from the last, and that's The Powwow by Naomi Alderman. This book has won the Bailey's Prize for female literature this year, and I just cannot wrap my mind around it. I cannot understand how on earth this book could have won that prize. I find it misogynistic, sexist, really poorly constructed, copy. It's a fan fiction for a person who's absolutely obsessed with Margaret Atwood. Yes, Margaret Atwood is a great writer. I can appreciate how she can have a huge influence on your writing career. In fact, it's one of the good things about this book that she likes Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale. But how can you possibly compare The Powwow as a sequel to Handmaid's Tale is beyond me. It's a science fiction book where in the very near future, well, part of it, let's say in the near future, women discover that they have this unique new physiological ability. They're able to use their body to generate electricity. They have a special inbuilt organ next to the collarbone which generates electricity, and they can use it to harm each other or to harm men. And initially that comes as a shock and people can't really control it, but then eventually they learn how to use it as a weapon, they learn it for their benefit, and the world changes from the way we know it, goes upside down, and women start to rule the world. And then we are transported throughout this book to the future where the world is a very different place, and the people have forgotten what it used to be like, that the women used to be those quiet creatures with no rights now, because now they rule the world. The idea might have been there, but it's just so poorly realized. There's so much unnecessary sex. I don't know, is the author not getting enough sex in her life? I don't know, because 2/3 of the sex in this book was completely unnecessary. Violence and the gruesome detail of violence in this book was completely unnecessary. The structuring of the text was boring, so you have multiple narrations, mostly female, there is a male. You have action taking place in different parts of the world, so you have Nigerian part, you have American part, you have English part, and obviously she likes to go for the dirt of the society, so she chooses quite unpleasant characters, and she chooses a politician as one of them in America. All of the characters in this book I did not care about. There was not a single character in this book who I found well realized and well written. A lot of them were just caricature copies. The horrible depiction of other parts of the world based on the current understanding of the societies by the author is shocking. Particularly the way she portrays the Eastern Europe and India. This is racist in a way, because it shows that the author is very, very insular in her understanding of the world. She maybe watched a couple of 1980s, 1990s movies, and she based her prejudice about some parts of the world on those. I deeply disliked it. The utopian world she creates is nowhere near powerful enough. You can't possibly compare this to Handmaid's Tale. Handmaid's Tale was scary, it was terrifying in a way it was uncanny. This one is predictable. I knew from page 2 where this book was gonna take me. I knew exactly how she would take me there, and I didn't want to read about it. I finished it simply because it has won the prize, because everyone kept telling how amazing this book is. But if I could take the 5-6 hours I have spent on this book back, I absolutely would, and I would probably spend them reading the other nominees for the Bailey's Prize this year. This is definitely not worth the read. And even the way the publisher decided to decorate the page using the ideas of 1920s, 1930s communist era. This is not Animal Farm, guys. This is not George Orwell 1984. This is just sick vision of a sick woman who is desperately horny. She just needs to get fucked, I'm sorry. She really, really does. Maybe if she does get it out of her system, she's not gonna hate women and men as much as she does, and look at every relationship in a perverse way. I found this book dirty. Just unnecessarily so. Oh, piece of rubbish. I can't believe it has been so read this year. Right, and now we come into the last book. I saved worst until the last. The biggest disappointment of this year, the book which I absolutely detested, and it's the only book this year I have DNF'd, a third in. I don't usually do it. I still like to finish the book so I can have my proper opinion about it. But this one... Right, you might hate me for my opinion. A lot of people love this book. But since we're doing this and we're being honest, I'll mention it. The book which I found lacking in every possible way imaginable is Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts. It's a chunker of a book. The edition I have is 336 pages in a very small font, and I had given it a very good go. You can't falter me for not trying. I have read the first 2 parts, which are 346 pages of tiny font. This is 9 hours of my life I will never ever get back. This book, honestly, it's the worst thing I have laid my eyes on in several years, and I sincerely hope I'm never gonna come across a crap written, pretentious piece of fiction ever in the future. I'm becoming much much more stringent with the way I approach books, with the way I select books for reading. This, however, has been really widely praised, and a lot of people think that it shows the real India. There are a lot of deep thoughts the author tries to convey through this writing. So where do I start with it? Let's start with the fact that this is supposed to be a piece of literary work. The writing is appalling. It is so bad. This is why I don't write books, guys, because I think if I write a book, it will look just as bad. I'm not an author. You need to work on your writing style. This, honestly, needs to be edited and rewritten. The flowery, overly sentimental style of descriptive nature when the author just cannot give up telling me every tiny minor detail. Why? I get it, India smells. If you didn't know that, I'm sorry, you should be ashamed of yourself. Read a little bit, open your eyes to the world. If you think that people don't know that shanty towns exist, I'm sorry, people do. If you go to the country which is plus 40 degrees centigrade in the summer and you don't expect it to smell, well, what the hell is wrong with you? And then he falls in love with this woman and he just cannot stop talking about her beautiful eyes. Honestly, out of 350 pages I've read, at least 10, if I collectively brush through those pages, will be about the eyes and how he stared in her eyes. The overly saccharine, overly sugary prose is mind-blowingly dull. This is so dull. And it's so racist. Honestly. Yes, the guy goes to India. He might have never come across other Indians. But the ideas he conveys, oh, it was cringy. It was cringy. I could not read it. If you think that he describes real India, that's a shame. Because he makes no justice whatsoever to the world he describes. Daily Telegraph called this a literary masterpiece. In what way can you tell me this is a literary masterpiece? And then let's talk about the character. I bloody hate the character. He's a convict who ruined lives back in Australia. He escapes from Australia with a fake bloody passport and he never feels guilt. Any guilt. There is no remorse. There is no guilt whatsoever, and he carries on committing crimes and putting people on drugs. There is no remorse in this book. He is completely morally corrupt. And okay, fair enough, I can't deal with a book where I hate or detest a character, but this character is stupid, morally corrupt, waste of bloody space, who thinks that his life has a meaning and he needs to share it with the world. Why? Why? You committed some horrible crimes. Go and repent, do something for the society. This is not how you benefit society, by writing a completely useless piece of fiction which is painful to read and tries to justify your existence on this planet. It's partially biographical. Because he, in real life, the author is the ex-convict who has escaped on a fake passport, who did his dirty deeds in India, country he so much loves. Maybe he loves it because he fell in with a crowd where he could blend in, and the world he describes. Of course, he's such a socialist. He really wants to help people who live in the most abhorrent conditions. Bollocks to that. He just wants to have a decent hiding place. He gives no two squabbles about anyone else around him. He just uses people for his own benefit. Over and over and over again. And when he tries to justify it in some flowery terms, oh, I give up. Because I can't, I just can't. I can't read it. It's so bad. I don't know even what to compare with. There's nothing I have previously read which was on the equally bad footing as this book. I feel so bad for the trees which were wasted printing this book, and people love this. People in the Western world fell head over heels in love with this, to the extreme that he had to write a sequel. If this crap is not bad enough, there is now a sequel to this book, which is even bigger. So let's summarize it. There is no literary merit because it's really poorly written. There is no character development. There is no character description as such. There is a very little understanding of the world. All you have is glorification of the drug culture and of this poor guy who was pushed into selling drugs. And of course, because he's so noble and so benevolent, he had to find a way to escape. So he can go to India and ruin that country as well. What needs to happen to Gregory David Roberts? He needs to go back to jail and repent his sins and do community service. Instead of spending time writing this book, maybe he can do community service and help to rebuild some of the areas in India, the India he so much loves. What a piece of crap, honestly. If that book makes you want to go to India, then I don't know. This is the worst description of the India I've read. And I have Indian friends. Thank God they have agreed with me. I'm not completely on my own there. But in Russia, this book is massive. People love it. They think that it opens some sort of deep ideas about the world, deep philosophical narrative. There is no philosophical undercurrent in this book. It's the collection of most banal ideas I have ever come across. He basically reiterates every fact ever known which Westerners held about Indian culture, all wrapped up in a really poorly written text. Whew. Okay, I got this out of the way. Sorry guys. I do apologize if I have offended anyone. If you love that book, maybe you can tell me why, because I honestly cannot see why anyone would want to waste their time reading nearly 1,000 pages and learn nothing from it. So that was the most sour video I've made in the whole year. Promise the next one will be much more positive. I will do a summary of the best books I've read this year and my plans for 2018, and I also have the second half coming of my summer reads and my November reads. So stay tuned. Happy reading, guys. Bye.